President Trump heads to the United Nations this week, where the North Korean nuclear threat will obviously be a major topic of conversation. In fact, that delegation sitting front row. Joining us now is Angelo State University Political Science Professor Dr. Bruce Bechtol and former advisor to President George W. Bush, Brad Blakeman. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
All right, Brad, I begin with you. What do you expect the president to say when he addresses the UN General Assembly for the first time tomorrow?
I think he's going to rally the world. He's going to take them to task, and he's going to challenge them to de-escalate the crisis on the Korean Peninsula. But curiously enough, the two major antagonists in the world will not be present. China and Russia will not be present for Donald Trump's speech to the UN, and that is very troubling because China has no bigger challenge than trying to calm the situation, and yet they're not there. And Russia, of course, has been destabilizing in the Middle East, most recently, of course, in Syria. So I'm troubled by the fact that two superpowers who have control over a lot of the chaos in the world are absent from the UN General Assembly.
Does that trouble you, Dr. Bechtol, that, we can expect the president, and we have seen the president, really put the pressure on China to enforce sanctions, for one thing? China and Russia aren't going to be there?
Yeah, that is very interesting. I think another thing that's very interesting is, we got the sanctions and new sanctions pushed through very quickly. But as you know, China and Russia did their usual shtick of, watering them down a bit. So I think President Trump may be looking already at the new sanctions that we're going to be putting on the North Koreans that will put real pressure on sanctions on their financial activities that go much farther than what the sanctions that were just issued after this latest missile test.
Now, the most recent sanctions, I want to bring up a tweet from the president about that, because we're starting to wonder if maybe they're beginning to bite. This is what the president said over the weekend, and there's a new nickname for Kim Jong-un here, which is Rocket Man. I spoke with President Moon of South Korea last night, asked him how Rocket Man is doing. Long gas lines forming in North Korea, too bad. Brad, do you think maybe the sanctions are starting to bite?
They might be starting to bite, but they're not having the kind of bite that is necessary to cause the pain to Kim, the dictator of North Korea. China is reluctant to turn off the oil tap, and that's really what needs to happen. And I'm a firm believer that the United States has to have some shared sacrifice in the reduction in trade with China. We have to tell China that as long as you continue to deal with North Korea, then we can't deal with you. Yeah. And yeah, it's going to hurt our economy, but nowhere near what our economy would face if we faced a nuclear retaliation on the Korean Peninsula.
Aside from sanctions, aside from cutting off the finances, which is very, very important, Dr. Bechtol, is there a way that the United States can intercept the North Korean ships that are bringing supplies and getting supplies from Iran, for instance?
Absolutely. That's called the Proliferation Security Initiative, and that was founded by President George W. Bush. And under PSI, some other member states, not just us, but people like the Australians and member states that shall go unidentified because they asked to, have made several interceptions of shipments in the Middle East just this year. So one can expect that the tempo will probably be pushed up on that, along with going after the banks, the front companies, and the individuals, non-North Koreans, who are helping their illicit financial activities outside of North Korea and that are enabling them to continue to finance these very expensive ballistic missile and nuclear programs. So I think PSI is something we'll see increased focus on. There's already 100 member states in PSI, and you may see more active PSI operations in the news in coming weeks.
Okay. And then, we have to end this discussion, Brad, with a talk about the potential military option. Of course, no one wants to see that, including the new UN Secretary General, because he said, look, it's going to take generations to overcome, Brad, what would happen if there was a military option. We're pretty close to seeing one, are we not?
Well, every day that Kim tests his arsenal in degradation of international law brings us closer to that point, and it's regrettable. But China really holds the key, in my opinion, to de-escalating this. They can do it if they want to. So far, they've chose not to, but we need to cause the pain to China to make them believe that the United States not only will retaliate, but they're going to be brought into this as well. So it's not just North Korea that's involved; it's our allies, and most importantly, China.
All right, Brad, Dr. Bechtol, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.